Hi, welcome back. I'm Chuck, and today we're going to build a console table. So a little while back, my friend James asked me to build them a table to go behind their couch because they have this super big room and they had a small little table sitting there before. So we came up with the idea to make two of them. There's actually one on the other side here and one in the back. So let's get started on showing you how we made this. We're going to use all framing lumber for this project, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it to length at the miter saw. When making repeatable cuts, it's best to use a stop block because you get the same exact cut every time. So I'm going to set this for 28 inches and cut the legs. If the edges of your lumber that you get at the store are rough like this, I'll just go ahead and cut the end off so you have a smooth edge on both sides and then cut it to length. So I'm going to cut the top next, and I'm going to cut these out of 2x6s. To get them all the same length, since my stop block doesn't go out to 60.5 inches, I went ahead and cut them to rough length, have the smooth end that I cut down here. I clamped them together, and now I'm going to cut them all on the line down here. Now the problem with this is my saw blade will not cut through all three, so I'm going to have to cut, stop, take the top one off, and then do the same thing for the second one. So the apron for this is going to be 2x2s, but I'm actually going to cut them out of 2x6s. So I'm going to cut them to length and then rip them down on the table saw. So to make repeatable cuts, I'm going to set the stop block for the length that I want, and then I will rip them all down at the table saw. 2x2 furring strips are really warped at the store, so I'm just going to use these 2x6s and cut them to length and then rip them down. All right. I have my table saw fence set up for 1.5 inches to make 2x2s, so let's make 12 of them. Next step is connect the top together with pocket screws. And since we're using framing lumber, sometimes it isn't as straight as you'd like it to be. I picked the pieces in the correct orientation where they connect the best together, and I'm going to mark some spots across them so I know where I am putting them together once I put the pocket holes in. All right, so we have all of the pieces cut except for the center shelves, which are the 1x12. And now I'm going to drill a bunch of pocket holes. Instead of using a typical Craig jig, I'm going to use the Craig Foreman. These work just fine. It just takes a little longer, and we have a lot of pocket holes to drill. So I am going to use the pocket hole machine, which I highly recommend if you use a lot of pocket hole joinery. All right. Can't imagine doing that many with a drill. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the top together first, and the reason is because the top has to be stained and sealed, so it's going to take the longest to finish. So when I'm putting it together with pocket screws, I'm going to clamp the boards together, but I'm also going to clamp the face so that when the two line up, they don't want to shift when the pocket screws go in. Got the top put together with the pocket screws, and now I'm going to go ahead and sand it before we stain it and finish it. For the stain, we are using Varathane Dark Walnut, and I'm going to have to use probably 3 coats of this. You want to go with the grain when you're applying stain. So now we're going to start connecting the base together, and we're going to do that using pocket screws. When you use pocket screws, it's really helpful to clamp a lot of stuff in place. I've said this before, just so it doesn't shift when the screw goes in. The top of the table and the shelves are all 10.5 inches from one another, so I cut a spacer piece right here, so I don't have to measure that each time. I'll just use this block of wood, and then there will be consistent spacing in between them. I have the front and the back put together individually. Now it's time to connect them. Ran out of pocket screws, so won't let that happen again. Just went and bought 250 2.5-inch pocket screws. Screw please. Thank you. Ah! This one. We are going to cut the shelves out now. This is a 1x12. I need it at 49.5 inches, so we're going to do that with the crosscut sled on the table saw here. We're going to do some sanding. So now we're going to cut the X's for the X base, and I'm going to take and mark the spot to cut them. A clamp would work really well right now, but I don't know where they are. Somebody put them away. Hashtag cameraman. Hashtag camera woman. Lost my glasses.
Right. Hashtag karma.
Let's go. So we ran into a little snag. My miter saw only cuts to 55 degrees, and this needs to be cut at 60, but the complementary angle is going to be 30. However, that means that I can't cut it up against the fence. I'm going to have to cut it like this, facing out, which seems very unnatural to do. But what I'm going to do is I am going to set up a stop block, hold it on one side, press a board against it on the other side, and use a sacrificial board to hold all of them down, and I'll hold on to that one. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, it's kind of an awkward cut. Just do it with a handsaw or find another way, because this could be kind of dangerous, but I think we're going to be okay. I'm going to spray with sawdust. Hashtag sawdust. So now we have our X, and we need to figure out how to make these at the same depth. So there's two ways you can do this. You can do what's called a half lap joint, is where you take the half of the width out of each board, and that would require doing it over a table saw with a miter sled that I don't have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this piece at 2 spots, and I'm going to glue it to the ends of this one. Cool? So now we're going to glue the X's in place. It's exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these little offcuts, and we are going to use them to make this square and then clamp this to the side. So in addition to the little triangle cutoffs, you can take these pieces as well. They fit right into here, and we're going to clamp them together, and that holds the whole thing together as the glue dries. So I have 3 coats of stain on here, and I am going to finish this with Mimwax polyacrylic. We're going to use 4 of these corner brackets along with some bolts as decorative hardware. I'm going to go ahead and paint them black. Then I'm going to do a DIY chalk paint recipe. Is that the word you use there? I'm going to use plaster of Paris, latex paint, and water. 1 part plaster of Paris and 1 part water. You have to mix this really well, or else it turns into like watery sludge. I have made this mistake before. I have tried to paint with mortar. Dump it in here, and we are going to mix it with latex paint. Pretty good mixture. Now I'm going to attach the hardware. I have these bolts that I painted black, and I'm going to screw them in. I'm installing these corner brackets. It's just decorative hardware, but I'm going to pre-drill the holes so it doesn't split. Last step is to attach the top, and I'm going to countersink some holes and use 2.5 screws drilled in from the bottom. So we're super happy with how this turned out. We really like how the decorative hardware on it gives it like a industrial accent and still keeps kind of like the farmhouse-ish look that is pretty popular nowadays. So I have some more videos you might want to check out over here, and if you want to subscribe, go ahead and hit the button over here. Thanks for watching.